Okay, so welcome to episode 2 of this golf fitness seminar. My name is Brian Cammarata. I'm a golf fitness coach here at Lynx. I'm TPI certified. I'm also a certified strength and conditioning specialist through the NSCA. We've also got Ryan Peffer on the call. He's our head of instruction here at Lynx, PGA professional, and also the assistant golf coach at Boston College, right up the street in Chestnut Hill. And then we've also got Jeff Atkinson, who was not here last week. He's making his debut today on the show. Jeff's a PGA pro and one of the teaching pros here at Lynx as well. So we will get to those guys in a second. But I'm going to start. Today we're talking about balance and footwork, pressure, a couple different things. But the big word for me today is going to be connection. So that's really what we're going to talk about. And when we talk about balance, and one of the things I talk about with my clients a lot is I like to refer to balance as coordinated stability. Okay, so stability, we talked about a little bit in the initial golf webinar, which was, you know, we go to the different joints in your body. We're really looking for either stability or mobility. Mobility, we want some movement. Stability, we want really balance and some structure. So balance to me is that coordinated stability, where if we're in a stable position, can we coordinate movement around that stable position? Okay. So one of the first moves I want to do here, and this is straight from the TPI test or TPI screen. So if you've seen this before, you'll recognize this. All we're going to do, I want everyone to do this. So step back from your screen, step back from your computer, get off of your chair, get into the game. So what we're going to do, very simple. We're going to stand on one foot. Okay. So get nice and tall, get a nice posture, stand on one leg. Okay. Try to hold that for 10 seconds if you can. Take note of where you're wobbly, or you're wobbly at the ankle, or you're wobbly at the hip. Does your knee wobble? Whatever it is, just take note. Okay, good. Go back down. We're going to try that one more time. This time we're going to hold for 5 seconds. And then when you've reached 5 seconds, you're going to close your eyes. Okay? And when your shoulder loses its plane, so if you go like this, that's an end of the test. That means you failed. Okay? So let's go here. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, eyes closed. Who's still up there with me? Who's still there? And I'm up. Okay. So how do we do? If you got over 10 seconds, 15 seconds, pretty good. Anything over 15 seconds is PGA Tour quality as far as balance. This is called balance test. If you got under 15, that's okay. If you got under 10, maybe get your affairs in order. I'm not sure how much longer you've got. No, just kidding. That's okay. You got room to improve. So to me, that drill, people will talk about, well, we're measuring your ankle stability, right? Because if that ankle is wobbly, that's going to cause the knee to collapse. That's going to cause you to lose your tilt and you're going to fall. Maybe. People will say, well, that's about your hip stability. Okay, if my hip is wobbly and my glutes can't fire to stabilize that hip, then I'm going to fall. That knee is going to valgus and I'm going to fall down. Maybe. I think that drill is more about connection. Okay, how well are you connected to the ground and connected to your body? Because if you think about it, nothing really changes when we close our eyes other than we lost what's called proprioception. Proprioception is how we see our body in space. So I think if you ask Ryan and Jeff, some of the hardest people and students they work with are the ones that lack that proprioceptive muscle. They don't really know where their body is in space. And when Jeff or Ryan ask them to do something, like let's get that left hip out of the way, they just don't know how to do it in space because they can't make that connection. Okay, so if you're going to do this drill again, I'll give you one way to just get instant improvement. I wore my slip-off shoes today because I know I'll be doing a lot of this. Take your shoes off, get up on one foot. I just failed my own test. And grip the ground with those toes, okay? And what this does is it improves that connection with the ground. You want to get even better? Take your socks off and go barefoot on the ground. I used to play golf. I used to live in San Diego, and I played golf with this guy I worked with. His name was Frank, and he used to play with his bare feet. We would play Torrey Pines, which is right behind me. And Frank would always tell me, well, there's no USGA rule that says you can't play in bare feet. Now, there's common decency rules and course conduct rules, but there is no USGA rule, and he's right. And so he would show up to Torrey Pines in jean shorts and we'd be wearing flip-flops, and he'd take them off on each shot. But he really felt it helped improve his connection to the ground when he was swinging the club. And there was really something to be said for that. So one thing I'll work on with people in the gym is how well are we connecting to the ground, and how well can we connect to our feet? So one thing we'll do is we'll use an RX pad or something that can provide a little bit of instability. So if you're at home, you could use a pillow. Pillow would be actually a great substitute. And I'm just gonna get people used to, we're gonna get your shoes off or your socks off. You can go barefoot. Barefoot's actually better than socks. And we're just gonna stand on the RX pad, all right? So that RX pad provides a little bit of instability. And I'm really focusing on driving my feet and squeezing my toes and creating that big arch in my foot. Okay, that's step one. Then we're gonna add some motion. So we're gonna step out to the left, step forward, step back, step left, step forward, step left. And we're just creating that connection to the ground, okay? Next thing you can do is a split squat. Grab the ground with those feet. Scrunch those toes up, make that arch even bigger on your foot. Almost fall over, see? There we go, look, it's working already. So we squat down, come back up. You can see my ankle has to work even harder to stabilize my body. And we're going up and down. Third thing, next progression, the split squat hold. We hold this position. You can see my front quad is trembling, and that left ankle is really working hard. Okay? Great drill to be able to build some awareness in your feet. Now, I don't want you doing bench presses and overhead press on unstable surfaces because that's silly, because those are strength building movements. You want the most stability you can have when you're doing strength building movements. But when we're working on stability and balance, it's great to do drills like this with body weight or very lightweight, just to get an idea of that connection to the ground and the connection between your ankle, your foot, and your knee and your hips. So Ryan and Jeff, do you guys want to talk about just some of the things you guys work with or see with the golf swing when it comes to that balance part?
I think one of the things we just kind of need to make clear, and it's just one thing you take away today from the golf swing aspect of things. It's really understanding that your center of pressure, basically not necessarily where your weight is, but where you're pushing into the ground, is really going to work with the path of the golf club. So if you think about it from the standpoint that you take your stance, all right, and if you were to be 50-50, which is pretty much what you want to be for a full swing in terms of the weight on your feet, is you swing back, okay, you want to feel like the weight in your foot, or the pressure point rather in your foot, moves to from the ball of your foot into kind of the arch and around your right ankle. So basically, if you think about that, then the path of the club will parallel that for the most part, okay? Then on the downswing, if you're someone that's trying to hit, let's say a draw, for example, you're going to want to move more from the inside of your ankle on your trail foot towards the ball of your left foot and then back around your ankle. So I've got a diagram here I want to show you real quick. If I can share my screen. Okay, whoops. Let's see if I can get, not iTunes. There we go. So what this is basically is this line that's curved. That is in the center of the screen. Where it begins is the center of the stance, and that's showing that you're about 50-50. As the weight moves back, it kind of moves towards the heel of the right foot. This is for a right-handed player, and then it moves with a very small arc towards kind of, you can see where it's green, that's where they're pushing down around the ankle. If you're a player that hits a fade, for example, it would look more like this. So it's kind of coming more towards the metatarsal or ball of your right foot, then going out towards your toes of your right foot, and then straight into the ankle of your left foot. So it doesn't really move towards the ball. And that's the path that the club would be traveling on to create a fade. It'd be an outside-in path. So if you're practicing at Lynx, you can't see necessarily where the pressure is in your feet, but you can see on the screen the path that your club head is traveling on. So if you're someone that's battling a path that goes to the left for a right-handed golfer or creates a fade or a slice, chances are you're the pressure in your feet is moving in that same direction from right to left. So that's something you just really want to understand. A right to left path for a right-handed player, or an outside-in path, creates a fade or a slice, and that's probably how your body is moving, or your pressure in your body is moving as you swing. So what causes that for most players that fight a slice, okay, is if I get set up here to hit a shot, let me tilt this down, and you get to the top of you get to the top of your swing, grab a club here, okay, and you get to the top, and the first move is with your hands and arms. If you move out your hands and arms first in your downswing, what's happening is that the pressure in your feet is going to move to the right toe and then directly into the left heel, and that's going to create that out to in slice. If you think about it, this is what a golf instructor told me once, and I don't know if it's technically right, but he said the arms weigh about 20 pounds each, okay, on your body. And if you think about it, you're at the top of your swing, and if your arms move first, or you throw your arms out in front of you, that's about 40 pounds of your body that is moving out towards your toes and create a slice type pattern, okay? So just wanted to clarify that. If you think about how the rest of your body is moving, in addition to your feet, a lot of times that will help you understand why your pressure in your feet is working the way it does.
Hey, Ryan, I want to hop in there because I think one thing you said is really dovetails nicely into something we talked about last week with the hip hinge. So if you look at a hip hinge, if we're standing nice and tall, we sit back, like in the hip hinge we talked about yesterday, we've got that flat stick against our back. What we're going to notice, and I want you guys to do this if you can at home, so make a nice hip hinge. So we sit back, our torso comes forward. When your torso comes forward, where does the weight go in your body? Where do you feel like that weight goes? Okay, the weight should go in your heels. Otherwise, what do? If your weight stays on your toes, you fall over, okay? So your body has a natural counterbalance between your upper body and your lower body. So if I feel like the weight is in my heels, that means I have a nice hip hinge, okay? So I feel a little bit more weight in my heels. Now you can feel it in the center, but if we feel a little bit more heels, then that means your upper torso has got to be a little bit more leaned over. What's the opposite of that? Once I stand up, I get a little bit more pressure in my toes, okay? So if you were to stand up and keep that pressure in your heels, then you fall back this way, okay? So how does that relate to the swing? Well, it relates to early extension, which is something we talk about a lot, and we'll talk about it pretty much every episode of this series. Because when you early extend, we're out too much on the toes, and we can't turn and continue to turn into the ball, and we have to extend our hips this way because we're too far out on the toes. That's not the only reason you early extend, Ryan. I'm sure you know, but that's one of the reasons. So one of the feelings you can get is keeping that pressure on the downturn in the heels a little bit more, because that allows you to hold that hip hinge and turn through the ball, okay? If you're out on those toes too much, you're probably gonna early extend. Think about it this way. How many times have we seen a baby do a really beautiful ass to grass squat right down to the ground, right? Everyone says, oh my God, the baby's got such great mobility. Well, the baby's head is a really large percentage of their weight. If the baby weighs 10 pounds, their head probably weighs 6. Okay, so that counterbalance of their head is what's keeping their butt back and allows them to get into that nice deep squat. Okay, so it's something to think about with this as well. Where your upper body goes, the weight has to go the opposite way in your lower body. So if we can continue a little bit more of that heels feeling in our swing on the downswing, we should be able to make a little bit better turn and have less early extension. Jeff, anything from you as far as balance you see with your students?
Sure. Can everybody hear me? You guys
we
can
got
hear me? Okay. Hey, it's happy to be here. It's interesting that I'm the featured guest. It's an honor for sure. Hope everybody's staying healthy and getting through this. I know it's tough times. It's nice to have golf back, but it's just been tough for a lot of people. So excited to be able to talk, about different swing thoughts and different balance points with the footwork. So what I wanted to do is I just made a quick little PowerPoint. So I'm going to share my screen. Just let me know if you guys can see this. You see my screen?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. So talking about footwork and balance on my end, just to give a little bit of a quick background for you guys. You know, like Brian mentioned, excited to be here. My name's Jeff Atkinson. PGA professional, spent 5 years post college traveling between Florida and Boston, working primarily at the private sectors. So I've taught and learned a lot from a lot of great instructors up and down the East Coast. I now have a different full-time job, so the sweet spot for me, if anybody was looking for, you know, instruction, would be at nights or on the weekends. So yeah, I worked at Belmont for 3 years, so I know the Boston area really well, and I'm just excited to be at Lynx. It's such a great spot to, you know, one-stop shop, and I'm sure you all know that. So that's a little bit about me. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. On my end, can you guys still see my screen and hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, great. So I see, and it's player dependent for sure. And that's what's nice about having different instructors with different, you know, swing thoughts and opinions, because there's no one right swing or one right stroke. But what I tend to see with people is you have two different moves. So on the left here, I call this the hanger. And on the right here, we call it the swayer. So that's what I see. And and that's really what causes a lot of mishits and just issues with consistency and repeatability. So just to kind of go off of the two different swing types that I see that affects your balance with your footwork in general, is starting with the swayer, right? So the swayer is somebody who is kind of all over the place. They tend to really move their weight laterally with their body and their arms. I know Ryan mentioned it earlier with your arms being relatively heavy, 20 pounds each, whatever it may be. The sway paired with the arms traveling down towards the golf ball first is the major point that, you know, that's what I typically see. I think the stat is like 84% of people hit a left, if they're right-handed, a left to right ball flight or a slice. I think that for sure comes from swaying your body weight and just letting your arms and shoulders do too much work. So what I have here are the 3 drills, and you know, I'm sure this will be shared and we can go off of it, but what I would do with somebody, since we're all at home and we can't see you, is I just put 3 drills here for someone who sways, right? You may not even know you're a swayer, but these are good drills to help with repeatability and keeping yourself balanced, right? Using the proper footwork. So on the left here, you see my mouse moving. This is the no club practice swing. I think that this is really important for beginners, really anybody who tends to find themselves losing their balance or swaying left to right laterally, is just working on your turn. And this would go hand in hand with the TPI with Brian, is just rotating your shoulders, if you're a right-handed player, you would be holding your left thumb and just rotating and just seeing, does my body stay grounded? Am I using the ground as my friend, or do I find myself laterally just moving and just getting off balance? So that's just something simple you can do. It helps you with your stretching and your mobility, is just kind of working on your footwork as well as that proper shoulder turn. So that's just a good drill, especially when you're at home, you're on lunch break, like right now, stand up and start doing some mobility and just working on your balance. The second drill is, I think, one of the greatest things that I've ever used in teaching, or that you can have in your bag, is what's called an alignment stick. Using those to help practice is crucial. With this picture here, this is actually using the alignment stick as a bumper. You would just get your setup, and you want to imagine that your body is going to stay within, if you put a plane of glass on each side of you, you want to be able to pretty much stay inside that plane. If you find yourself swaying too much backwards, right, you're getting too loaded on your right side, with head movement, you would be bumping into the alignment stick. You can put them all over the place. I just think that's a great drill to help just maintaining consistency, right? You want to be more consistent. You probably have too much lateral movement, so I think that's a good one. The last drill I can recommend for someone who tends to sway, or I would say generally slice the ball, is if you have someone with you, is just resting a club sort of on the side of your head. That's a great drill as well. So those would be 3 recommendations I have, without getting too technical or needing to buy an expensive training aid. So I think we'll do question and answer at the end. If anybody wants me to offer more insight there, just let me know. Second swing type that I see, and I'm actually, I would call myself a hanger for sure. I've struggled with that, is when you're hanging back. So what does that mean? That means that you're the type of swinger that when you swing and finish the move, generally I know that I do this because my big toe on my right foot, I'm a right-handed player, will throb at the end of a round because I'm not properly transferring my weight to my left side throughout each swing. So I tend to hang back. You're putting too much weight on your right side coming through impact. And what does that cause for me? Big blocks right or snap hook, because you're trying to flip the hands through to catch up because you're not properly shifting your weight. So how do we fix either one of these? These drills are good for hangers and swayers. The first one is the impact fix. I challenge everybody, next time you're out there, specifically with your irons. You can do it with any swing, but I find it's great to practice. I do this all the time with my wedges. You're going to just set up, and then you're going to try to mimic a proper impact, right? Generally, touring pros, obviously they're the best ball strikers in the world. Just get a feel for what should it be at the bottom, because everybody has different swing types and everybody moves their arms, their body moves differently. But if you can get a good feel for just the proper impact, that's huge. So just working on that position. Second drill is awesome, goes right hand in hand with what Brian was talking about earlier in the beginning, is your mobility and your balance is swinging with just on your lead leg. So this is what this would be. You're basically, if you're a right-handed player, you are standing on your left foot. It's extremely hard, and I wouldn't recommend just starting off by doing this. I'd get yourself warmed up, maybe do some stretching, because it is physically demanding, I guess would be the word. So make sure you're warmed up before you do this and start swinging on your lead leg, because it can be, it's a tough thing to do. If you're trying it right now, it's just a great way to make sure you feel yourself coming through impact. And back for the third drill is alignment sticks. They can be used in so many different ways to work on the plane of your golf swing, to work on your balance with your footwork. I think that, like I mentioned, what I'll do is create little windows with alignment sticks. If I'm trying to hit a certain type of shot, or if I'm trying to work on my consistency, it always starts with wedges and just swinging either up and over or underneath. If you can get a good feel for the plane of your golf swing, whether or not you're swaying or you're hanging back, I think the alignment sticks prove a lot and can really help you if you put them down next to your ball to work on your impact. There's plenty of ways that we can help you with that, but those would be the, 6 drills for the 2 different types of balance and mobility that I sort of keep my eye out for. And what's beautiful about Lynx is the fact that the simulators are so accurate and the numbers don't lie, right? So that's what I've found. It actually benefits me as well as the student, because no matter what you think you're doing, the numbers don't lie, so that I think it's important to get in there and take a look, and, looking at the path, and then with your balance, there's a lot of different variables, player dependent, but that's my take on what we're talking about today. I'm going to stop rambling on as the featured guest here, but feel free to ask any questions of me. Here's my contact information. I don't know a lot of the members just because I'm sort of in and out, but I'd be happy to help, whether we're in Lynx or even right now when we're all struggling for something to do. So thank you. And I'll, from now on, pretty much just listen in and wait till the Q&A. So thanks a lot.
Cool. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Ryan, I want to throw it back to you. Ryan, I want to talk about feelings. Okay. Last week we talked about breathing. This week we talked about feelings. This is like therapy. I'm sure all the guys in the crowd out there just ran for the hills. I want to talk about just some of the feelings you want people to have in their swing as it pertains to that weight shift. Just because I want some people to have something tangible to take away, where when I get to that right side and I feel like I'm loaded up, what are some of the feelings I want to have? And then when I start that downswing, what are some of the feelings I want to have, whether it's in your feet, whether it's in your hip? What are some of the feelings you teach when you're working with someone?
Yeah, for most students, primarily try to, when I take a look at their golf swing, try to look at it from the ground up. So basically, when I'm analyzing someone, I say, okay, let's see what their setup looks like. What's their footwork look like? What's their hips look like? So when I'm watching, I'm trying to digest the kind of the chain of movement from the feet up through the hips, the torso, hands and arms. I mean, there's exceptions where someone has a glaring, unique move, let's say, that is kind of take me in a different direction, but typically that's the approach. So thinking of it from footwork standpoint, one of the things that's really important is you're stable. And it's stable from, as Jeff was talking about, from right to left, meaning just kind of swinging within your stance, okay, or within the within your feet, not getting out over the edges, or even losing your balance in your golf swing, which you certainly see a lot of, particularly when people are trying to hit drivers and literally swing out of their shoes or out of their stance. But it's also from the standpoint of heel to toe is really important as well. So right to left, heel to toe. So one of the things that I think will help you get the right feeling, and it's also a good way to test yourself when swinging a club, I brought here a door stooper, one of these things that you put on the ground in the wintertime to keep the cold air out of your front door, perhaps. Another thing you can use is a pull noodle. If you put it down and you step on it, okay, it's going to create a little bit of instability, very similar to what Brian was suggesting with the mat that he put on the ground. So if you're in this position, you should be able to turn back, okay, without wobbling too much right to your heel. You want to kind of feel like you're over that metatarsal ankle part. And then as you come through, you're going to be able to try to stay on there. But you can tell it's not the easiest to do. And the more rigid, whatever it is that you're stepping on, if it's a pull noodle, if a full pull noodle is too thick or too hard, you could cut it in half and use it just half of it. They also make training device on Eyeline Golf that's basically just like this door stooper, and it's to help you feel that stability. So if you're having trouble there, imagine if you're on a flat lie. Imagine if the ball's below your feet. Oh my gosh, that's going to really pull you into your toes. Or if the ball's above your feet, same thing, it's going to hang back on your heels. So you have to make some adjustments and really be able to be stabilized. If you start to wobble, first thing I feel is like, okay, now my knees and my hips, I'm like, am I strong enough to support the swing I'm making? So one of the pieces of advice I give you, if you struggle with your balance, the first thing you got to do is slow down your speed so that you're in control. Okay. So a lot of times if I get on a really severe uphill or downhill lie or balls above or below my feet, take an extra club and just swing it at 80%, or even maybe 2 clubs and swing it at 60% if it's really severe, so that you can maintain that stability. As soon as you pick up the speed, you're going to sacrifice stability unless you're really able to sustain that. So just something to think about, the feeling and playing within yourself from a balance point. In terms of right to left, a great drill that I do with my students is I stick a door stop under the right edge of their foot, okay? Or you can slide a grip under there or a club head. And if you're a swayer, you get too much to the outside of your right foot, well then that's going to wedge you in there a little bit, okay? So try to feel like you're staying kind of on the inside part of your feet, inside part of your trail leg and inside part of your lead leg until the swing's really finished. and then you might be out over the outside of your lead ankle, okay? So really feel like you stay within in your stance. For longer clubs, the driver, you're just gonna take a wider base, and you're gonna do that primarily by moving your trail leg, your right leg, you're gonna move it back. So with shorter clubs and around the greens, there's going to be some, based on the type of shot you're trying to hit, you might feel a little bit more balance on your lead leg, like that for chipping, for example. Jeff's drill of being on your left foot and feeling a lot of weight on your left foot is really a good drill. And if that's too hard, just take your right toe. I don't know if you can see this quite. Okay, and rest it on the ground just to kind of steady you and swing with 95% of your weight on your left foot. Just an adaptive way to kind of work into those one-legged swings.
All right, thank you, Ryan. Yeah, that's all really good stuff. And I just want to take it back to the gym for a second here, just to talk about, what if you are one of those people that just really has a hard time connecting to the ground, connecting to your body, and you really struggle with balance, not even just in your swing, but maybe throughout your day. You have trouble walking upstairs, or you have trouble standing on one leg, or when you're in the gym, you have trouble with that. For me, the best way to deal with that is very simple, is just to include as many unilateral exercises as you can in your program, okay? So throughout strength and conditioning, there's different camps when it comes to unilateral exercises. There's some who's on one side. One primarily is a guy named Mike Boyle, who is the head coach or head trainer over at BU. So he's Ryan's arch nemesis. And he moved over to Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning. And one of the things he's known for is he does not do bilateral squatting with any of his athletes. He only will do unilateral leg work. His rationale is that in sports and in life, for the most part, you're on one leg. If you're running, if you're jumping, a lot of that has to do, you're doing that on one leg. Now it's in golf's very kind of unique, where you're in a bilateral stance, but throughout the swing, you're constantly shifting weight and constantly shifting your body so that it might feel in different spots like you're on one leg. So that's camp number one. Camp number two is that you're in the gym. You're supposed to be building as much strength as possible, and the best way to do that is with bilateral leg work, because you can use the most weight. I don't really agree with either camp, just like in life. For the most part, I'm somewhere in the middle, because that's usually where the answer lies. Do unilateral exercises, do bilateral exercises. But if you really struggle with balance, I would really focus on unilateral, okay? And I like this because when we're split, and I'll do just a general split squat here, which to me is one of the best unilateral exercises we can do for the lower body. If I'm in this general split squat, I really want to get those feelings once again, guys, don't be too scared. We're going to really feel like this heel is digging into the ground, and I'm going straight up and down in an elevator, not an escalator moving this way. I'm going up and down, and I'm getting that feeling of connection with this foot into the ground, and that this foot is just a kickstand. It's really just stabilizing me, and I'm not really pushing with that foot. So bilateral movements will help you in what's called the transverse plane. We talked about this in the first seminar, where there's sagittal movement, which is front to back. There's frontal plane movement, which is side to side. It's really confusing why it's called frontal plane, but it just is. So this is side to side. That's called frontal plane. And transverse is sideways twisting and rotation. Well, what does that look like? That looks a lot like a golf swing, right? Okay. So a golf swing is highly transverse and a little bit of frontal plane when you talk about the weight shifts from left to right. So when you're in a split stance, not only are you in the sagittal plane because we're moving up and down, but because our balance is being challenged to the left and the right, we're really establishing some strength and stability in the transverse plane. And when Ryan talks about his students not having stability in their swing, a lot of it comes from their footwork and a lot of it comes from them moving too fast, but they're probably just not very stable in this transverse plane. So unilateral exercises are great for that. Split squats, Bulgarian split squats, where we hook our foot back behind us, any sort of single leg squatting. Those moves will help you with balance because it'll help you connect to one foot at a time. And the other benefit is you don't have that same kind of load on your spine. So let's say I'm loading 300 pounds in a back squat. That's 300 pounds of load on my spine plus the force of gravity. That's a lot. If I'm doing a split squat with those dumbbells to the side, I'm not putting any of that load on my spine in that case. So golf, the spine is very much involved. So you don't want to load it if you don't need to when you're exercising in the gym. So those are some some tips, and I would really stick with unilateral exercises, and I think you'll find your balance improves. So any questions from the crowd on anything that we covered today? We talked about weight shift. We talked about swaying. We talked about unilateral exercises and balance. Anything involving your swing, if you've got any questions for Ryan or Jeff about your particular move in general.
I know just watching and listening in, I don't know if everybody had a chance to watch the match, but there's another example of somebody who, obviously Tom Brady's one of the greatest athletes of all time, but with his golf swing, his big miss throughout the day when he didn't transfer his weight properly was block off the planet right. He had a tough day, but you could tell, and we're mentioning it even on, you know, the different pros on the broadcast. We're just talking about him hanging back too much and not properly transferring his weight. So I think the having the right balance of a swing coach as well as Brian as the physical side of things, just getting your body properly tuned in for that side of it's huge.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too, because, you know, obviously the problem wasn't, hey, Tom, we need to get you in the gym. You don't spend enough time in the gym with that swing. That was, Tom, get the hell off your right side so you can finish your swing and actually get your body to the ball. So that's one of those things where, and we talk about this all the time, is this a physical issue with your body, or is this an awareness issue or a proprioceptive issue where you just don't know where your body is in space? And it was really apparent during that match that he had no idea where his body was in space because he just could not get his right side to fire and cover the golf ball. And then when he tried to fire his hands, he hit a big hook. So that's a great indication of, it's not, you know, I don't want to downplay my role in this, but it's not just about your body. It's really about how you use your body. Obviously, so we talked about this in week one. If you have your body in proper condition, you give yourself more options with your swing. And that's the most important thing as far as being able to play, you know, for the long term.
Yeah, if Tom was to come for a golf lesson, let's say, one of the first things I think about trying to communicate to him is, in watching that, is like, all right, Tom, like, we're not throwing Hail Marys here where you're back on your right foot and you're kind of hanging there and rotating around the trail leg. We're trying to throw, you know, tight, flat spiral down the field, or even maybe to the left side of the field, where you're gonna, you know, use your legs, and I'm sure he would probably pick up on that pretty quickly. So think about it from a throwing motion. Sometimes if you're a hanger or a swayer, there's some things, you know, it's very similar to a throwing motion in terms of what your feet and how your pelvis are moving in a golf swing. Looks like we got a question from Bill.
That looks like for you, Ryan.
What's the most simple swing thought to prevent an outside-in swing besides slowing the swing down? Well, I think the first thing is if you're in good balance and a good position at the top. So assuming that's the case, I'm going to take you right from the top of the swing, because if you're out of position at the top, or if your balance is off, then this might not be the most productive swing thought, because there's an underlying issue there and where you're coming from. But let's say that's the case. You're in a good position at the top. You're well balanced. Besides the main thought of thinking about the ground up is just the sequence of that motion. So getting your legs to move and pivot. Okay, and that's what we're going to talk about more next week. Is the pivot is really, you know, rotating your pelvis instead of dumping your arms. So, you know, think about this pattern of how your weight needs to move in your feet. That's probably the most simple way. And then the second is just to then, if you feel good about that, you got to work on getting your pelvis engaged and kind of essentially loading into your right leg and exploding into your lead leg. Okay, if the explosion in your golf swing happens at the top and you're coming over the top, which is, you know, like spiking a football essentially, that's not going to work well. So try to use your legs to explode. And if you watch players like Bubba Watson, for example, He is maybe one of the most explosive players from the top of his swing with his legs. Okay, so get those legs engaged and really try to emphasize, if you're able, using some explosive rotation in the form of a pivot instead of being explosive at the top of your swing with your hands and arms, which quite honestly is instinctive. I mean, you're holding the club, and you're thinking, all right, I get this club on the ball, and that's what a lot of people that slice the ball or have outside in swings move towards innately, and really it's just a little bit different than that. We got to think from the ground up.
Yeah, and I remember I had an instructor who told me that that was it's called the hit complex. You're trying to hit the ball instead of swing through the ball, and that just comes from you're holding a giant stick in your hand. You're trying to hit it with it. That's kind of the nature of the game.
Bill,
go ahead, Jeff. You have anything?
Yeah, if I were to chime in on that one, Bill, I would recommend, since there's obviously instruction stuff right now, and nobody can see what it looks like, but a good drill would be using the alignment sticks to place down next to your ball if you're hitting balls at a driving range, or even at a driving range, a lot of times they have the wooden pieces separating the stations, is putting your ball very close to that alignment stick or that object. And if you're swinging over the top, you're going to be striking it. So your ball, if you can get it relatively close to that board and just work on short wedges, just getting the club, the feel for your arms and your body, not moving that club over the top, I think that's the quickest and easiest drill that I would recommend right off the top of my head without seeing anything, but it's certainly player dependent. So give that a shot. See if you can shallow out that divot.
Exactly. Another thing is, even if you don't have a board, just putting a golf tee, okay, off the toe of the club at address, okay, and swinging and trying not to cut across and hit that golf tee, okay. So I would position the golf tee if you're instead of it being right here, okay, just put it a little bit so it's basically just off the toe, and then it's also a little bit behind the club head at address, and try not to hit the ball without striking that tee. Okay, it's just giving you some barriers to try to work within. It's a good way. The thing is, we're assuming that this slice is led from the path, okay, which means a slice goes from outside in, where the ball starts left and then curves right. If you're someone like Brady who's hitting a block, okay, that starts right and goes further right, that's a little bit of a different story. So, and that's another reason why practicing at Lynx can be so helpful, is you can see, is it the face that's making the ball go to the right, or is it the path? And I know this question is about path. So it's a good starting point.
Okay, thanks guys. Any other questions for our two professionals or myself? Okay, cool. All right, well, thank you everybody for joining us today. Like I said, we're gonna be doing this every Thursday at noon for the next couple of weeks. And just touching on what I spoke about earlier, we are offering some online and virtual training sessions here at Lynx. So if you're interested in that, or interested in our golf fitness program through True Coach, please look us up. We've got a brand new website, so check it out. It's lynxfitnessclub.com. Our marketing team, Jenna Geisler, has done a really great job getting that together, and it looks great. So go check that out, and we'll see you next Thursday.